Ladies and gentlemen, before we get kick-started, I should just say that as a futurist, which basically means my mum has absolutely no idea what I do for a living. As a futurist, I'm also a little bit of a traditionalist, so it gives me a great pleasure to be here today to look at how tradition and technology really play together. Who remembers the good old days when cloud was just a meteorological term that blocked the sun here in London? You know, things used to be a bit simpler back in those days. As a futurist, though, I am a bit of a traditionalist, and this is one of the things I want to talk to you about here today, marrying tradition and technology, the analog with the digital. So before we talk about the future, let me take you back on a historical journey for a moment in time. Let me take you back to my native Stockholm, Sweden. An urban vista back 100 years ago when things were a little bit simpler. They were a little bit slower. They were a little bit more black or white. And this was the black and white urban vista, a cityscape still vaguely untouched by vehicles, where people were still walking around, a place where people only wore black or white clothing, amazingly. Certainly no floral patterns had been invented quite yet. And this was the urban vista that greeted a man by the name of Jaguar, or the son of Johan, which sounds very Viking-esque, or as we'd say in Australia, George Johansson. As the second oldest son on the family property, he had few inheritance rights, and as a result, he had to make his own commercial future in the cityscape of Stockholm. And his commercial opportunity after completing a retail apprenticeship for nearly 6 years was to take his life savings and invest them into his own bricks and mortar store. And his business model was all about the bespoke, the hyper-personalization, the seasonally adjusted girth of the Swedish gentleman. It gets cold in wintertime. And in a nod of approval to his provenance, as he became a man of commerce, he changed his surname from Johansson to the man from the southern farm, or Georg Sorman. He's my great-grandfather, and as you can tell, he must have been a little bit of a futurist because he's got an awesome haircut, a really cool little pocket square. But for my mum, Birgitta, the world of digital is now, as the third-generation owner-operator of this little store, ruining her old-school business model, threatening the heritage of a 101-year-old Stockholm institution. And my mum doesn't like change, and I think that's kind of humane, isn't it? Right? Change can be difficult, yet change doesn't really care whether we like it or not. It's always going to happen without our permission. No one's safe anymore, and just like robots and machines are doing to our brawns, artificial intelligence is increasingly doing to us as professionals, to our brains. And the future, of course, is not just about AI, it's also about EI, or emotional intelligence. For the last few years, I've been obsessing about how the analog world of tradition and the digital world of the future and technology, how they can intermingle. Certainly something that is critical when we think about man and machine, or woman and machine. The very essence of this idea of humanufacturing comes from the old term of manufacturing, which actually means to build by hand. This is the future we're entering into, a world of human and manufacturing, where the etymology also shows us that there's some weaknesses to what we do as humans. My first of two arguments here today is that now every business model, just like my mum's, is getting digitally disrupted. Because of artificial intelligence and the exponentiality of artificial intelligence, we're now at the knee of the curve when things start moving really quickly. What we are seeing is that we're all of a sudden working with cities that are breathing smart, thinking smart, in a world where 30% of all pollution from vehicles come from people looking for a car park. Can you imagine how smart cities might actually prevent congestion instead? A world of electrification where we're no longer going to be dictated to by the likes of ISIS and petro-dictators in the Middle East, but instead we're using all of the energies available to us via solar, etc., to make our mobility choices even more sustainable. What we are now seeing is that smart cities are starting to integrate with the vehicles around us, leading to more sustainability, lower energy costs, and of course the automotive industry has a massive opportunity to play in this smart city of the future, a city that I believe is more humane than the analog world could ever be. The pressure is on us as human beings to constantly code for humanity, to code for a humane future where we engage in new ways. But now objects, like the classic E-Type, will be able to have a conversation with us in real time. And what we all need to do, and why I love brands like Jaguar Land Rover, is that as heritage brand, as tradition brands, they are able to weave a story from the past to the present to the future. And they're able to engage with us just as you should and your stakeholders should, to ensure that they realize that the customer experience journey of the future is not one that's just linear, but it goes across analog touch points, from awareness to engagement to evaluation to decision and then usage and loyalty. And I believe increasingly in the future, when it comes to humanufacturing, what we have to do and what the consumer will increasingly care about is the artisanal, the craftsmanship, the importance of investing in factories both in Coventry and the Midlands, but ensuring that we tell a story of the humans behind the humanufacturing. Nowadays, the history and the future, as well as the present, sit side by side. The provenance, the textiles, the stories, the black and white history now gets electrified. Thank you very much for hanging out here. All the best in the future. Thank you.